it all operates in this illusory picture of reality. It doesn't matter whether it really knows it or not, because it's all just a construct, an illusion anyway. But yeah, no, the awareness actually is the only thing that it can know, and the only right way to say it is knowing. It is always knowing now, without any, I don't know if I can go this far, but without that weird thing the mind does that says that if I know something now, it will be true forever. And that is not knowing. The awareness is always knowing now. So the awareness, even seeing one person crawl into a little car and be whisked away, would not assume that the next person that crawls into a medical thing like that one will also be whisked away. For all I know, that one may actually be a dragon and it eats them. And that's the big difference between the mind's knowing and the awareness is knowing. The awareness is knowing now. It's an ongoing thing. And it does not assume that what I know now will fit every single event there is. And that's what the mind does, doesn't it? So it really knows nothing at all. Because it decides it knows something once, and that is good enough. That was another part of the experience. I mean, I did finally get that most of those things that had a certain, but see, this is the other interesting thing, is, you know, we didn't make those cars to all have neat little features to suit every possible taste, so you can get some customer somewhere, right? When the awareness just looks at them, they all look completely different. When we're looking with the mind, we see those as minor differences, but we always categorize it as a car, don't we? Yeah. The awareness don't do that. It sees two that you would probably think were almost exactly the same, and it does not assume at all that they're the same, because it sees all the differences between the two of them. So it was actually a really long time before the connection was made that most of those little metal blobs sitting along the street were all those whiskers. That's kind of what would be interesting to do here, would be to find some way to make it okay to have a mind and use it, but live in that awareness. Kind of the way to do it is to get into some higher states of being, where I can be okay not to have a mind, not to be a mind. Somehow we're just not okay with that down below, are we? It's just, everything is frightening down there, because that's where you live. That's why I call it a slum or a ghetto. You live in the state of fear. Everything is frightening. The idea of being without a mind is frightening. The idea of being without an identity is frightening. The idea of being without money is frightening. The idea of having certain things is frightening. Everything is frightening. It's often been the response when people tell me, it was scary, and I just look at them and say, everything scares you, what's your point? course it was scary. Everything's scary to you. That's where you live, is in a state of fear. Even anger is fear. It's just a more effective form of fear, isn't it? At least you get something done when you're angry, but behind the anger is a fear. Fear that you'll be hurt, fear that you'll be disturbed, a fear that you won't get your way. So you have to use violence to ensure it. Okay? In the higher states where I'm living in confidence, I could maybe handle a week or two without the mind and figure out, I'll get through it. It may be a little rough. Needless to say, I didn't work for those few weeks. So that particular little spiritual practice kind of lost me a job. Oh well, there's another one down the block. Who cares? I really did not care. Because that's the interesting thing about higher states. You live in confidence. So what's the problem? When I'm done with this and I'm ready, I'll get another job. Yeah, but it may not be one like I liked, like the last one. Always fear. I kind of figured the next one would be better. And if it wasn't, I'd quit. I'm not the job. I don't get the sense of fulfillment and yada, 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 and identity out of the job. So one's as good as another as far as I'm concerned. They're all interesting. Another question? Getting close to time to go.
So it's possible sometimes you can get a feeling without it being preceded by a thought.
Of course. Because you can report what is going on here without thinking about it. The feeling is going to come because of all those little chemical changes that are made to adapt you to what you've said is going on and to what X is going to do about it, what X is going to act on. So of course, you can get a feeling without ever having had a thought. You actually do that much of the time if you really observe. Because the suggestions that we report to X often are without thought. The pictures are faster. I can flash a picture before your face. And you think about what we've learned about subliminal. I can do it in a fraction of an instant, and it's all real to you, and gone. Which is why I suspect it was a picture. Well, it may not have been there when you looked. Because what we know of the way that the awareness works from that whole effort at doing the subliminal thing is that you can fully perceive a thing in a fraction of an instant. So many of the suggestions that you receive, that you report to X, are pictures. And they just flash in front of the awareness. And you tell X about them, and X acts on it, and you get a feeling, and then you start thinking about it. And that's the way it normally works. You rarely act on thought. You act on the thought afterwards as you think about all your justifications and your resentments and your angers and your fears and so on and so on and so on. And then you start reacting to the word suggestions. But most of the time during an event, that all happens way after you've already started whatever you're doing. And the original suggestion didn't come as a thought. And that is so unconscious, it is ridiculous for most people, isn't it? They have no clue that's even going on. All they know is the thoughts and the feelings. And that'll remain that way until you learn to disidentify from them, and you get enough of a developed awareness that you start perceiving the 90% of what's going on that is unconscious to you. You do not see those pictures consciously any more than you see the subliminal stuff that they've experimented with. The conscious mind does not recognize that it sees it, but it's acted on because it was reported to X. It was perceived, but it was so fast that it cannot be perceived by that slow thing that you call the conscious mind. So your perception of reality is just skewed because you live in that slow, stupid thing called the conscious mind, because that's what you identify as you. And you think that's all that's going on. And everything else is invisible, it's unconscious. There is no awareness of it, is really all that unconscious means. I'm not aware of it, but it's happening anyway. So if one were to really and truly look at how I'm dealing with reality, that tends to be the case. An event comes along, the mind associates it with something very, very rapidly, incredibly rapidly. A bunch of non-eyes are asked a question by the awareness, and they come up with a dream about the whole thing, and they flash that dream before your eyes, you report it to X as truth, and then begins the part that you're conscious of, so-called. Then you have a feeling, so you claim the feeling caused it. Then you start thinking about it, so you claim you're a rational being. And that's what occurs the majority of the time. There are some other things that happen, but that is, the majority of the time, that's the way events take place. The awareness itself is so fast that you can watch that entire procedure, which happens in a fraction of a second. And you can watch it go by step by step. And that's one of the interesting things when I finally decided that I was sick and tired of people arguing about whether or not God created the universe or it just happened by evolution. And I really sat down and said, I'm going to look at this myself and see what I see. And one of the decisions that I came to was that God probably wasn't a liar, and if he said he did this in 6 days, I guess he did. I see no reason to decide that he was lying. He just doesn't have the same idea of a day that I do. Duh. That one's not too hard to figure out, is it? And then I started considering that and saying, well, what is his conception of a day? If he said he did this in 6 days, and we say it took several trillion years, then how long is his day? And boy, was that an interesting consideration, okay? What I experience as a day, because he's trying to translate it into terms I can get, you see, so he's comparing it to my sense of duration. Actually took maybe 1 trillion years to take place. I did the math on this once upon a time out of curiosity, but I've forgotten now. There's some other clues in various books about his sense of time if you really want to work it out. And then realize that even though one of his days is 1,000,000,000,000 of my years, which I don't actually have 1,000,000,000,000 of, but get what I'm saying, he's aware of everything that happens down to what I would consider to be the microsecond level. Now there is an awareness. Don't you think? Aware of the entirety of creation, of which we see this minuscule part here, and it looks pretty damn big, doesn't it? And everything that's going on within it, instant by instant. Now, there is an awareness, and I was made in his image. How do you like them apples? So I decided to experiment with that a little bit and see, can I do that? Can I be aware of these, things that take place in far less than a second of time? And I'll be damned, but I can. Why not? He made me like him. Why shouldn't I be able to? His abilities still far exceed any I can come up with so far. But that was one of the outcomes of trying to deal with, I'm sick of this controversy, I want to understand it and maybe have some clue, was that perhaps being made in his image, he might have said that truthfully as well. I'm willing to accept it. I can do that too. So you can catch those pictures as they go by and see what suggestion you're being given. But truly, most of the suggestions you take are nonverbal. They are the most powerful suggestion there is, a nonverbal one. Because they bypass what you call consciousness. And they just happen. And then the mind and the not-I's happily justify it all, which means to explain it. So it makes sense and seems logical to the awareness, and it buys it hook, line, and sinker. What? Question? So what I'm kind of suggesting is maybe we'll try this and see if this will get you to a place where some of this stuff makes sense, okay? Maybe I can get into a higher state where I can start understanding this stuff from experience and deal with what it is to be in a human body, which is a bit rough. And worth every second of it. Stop judging the value of everything based on taste, okay? I know you have taste. I'd recommend you divorce it. It's a terrible lover. Of course you have taste. It's built into the body. It is not you, by the way, taste. It's built into the nervous system. That's what taste is, isn't it? It's just how various stimuli affect this nervous system. So most of the music that is going on in the world these days is not to Phil's taste. Now, we all believe that that's because Phil is an opinionated son of a bitch, which is probably true. And nobody ever seems to get that maybe that stuff that you find pleasurable disturbs the hell out of this body. I will never forget the first time I walked into a nightclub where they were playing, you know, it was a dance club really. Back in those days in actual bars and stuff, the music wasn't deafening, thank goodness. But I will never forget the first day I walked in. See, I don't dance. I feel like an awkward idiot. I'm a klutz, I told you. So dancing is just like the most humiliating experience imaginable to Phil. This Phil, anyway. But the first time I walked into one of those things, I was just jarred. And the experience, it was horrible. It was just horrible. Because I knew what part of reality that experience came from. I know that place. And it's not my favorite neck of the woods. It is the place where violence was born. And I know it very well. And I don't like living there anymore. And so I walk into this club, and I am instantly transported to that part of the universe where violence was conceived of and born. And I look around, there are all these people, and they think it is a stimulating, marvelous, it irritates the hell out of me. This body just literally, after a while, started shaking from that experience. So it is a matter of taste. I can handle the experience. It is certainly not what I would prefer. But this body just happens to be very sensitive to sound. And it tends to do things like that. If you sing a song of sad and beautiful that you think is so wonderful, this body just sits here and curls up and goes, ew, and is repulsed. That's all taste is. Most people like that sensation, apparently, of going to the place where everything is violent. And, you know, I guess there's this tremendous, as far as they're concerned, vital energy there. Well, I suppose there is. It just isn't the part of energy that I want to take in as vitality, okay? It really is a matter of taste. How it affects this body. And that stuff has just never worked for this body, okay? I don't see any reason to judge people whose bodies are not that sensitive. That's very clear. Most people are not that sensitive, are they? I don't think they walk into a nightclub for the first time and want to vomit. And I don't mean like want to ideologically. I mean their stomachs are because they walked in. So how can you judge something like that? It does not affect most people that way, apparently. Either that or they're really good actors. But it just doesn't make sense. I'm going to deal with that. But it doesn't make sense to base the life on whether or not something is to the taste. There are really better things that I would like to do. I would like to see that many times disturbance is good for me, because it is. But it is not to the taste. I would really rather not be disturbed. On the other hand, it is often good for me. And I'd like to see that and act accordingly. I can't let taste be the guide. You may not understand that about what I'm saying about certain kinds of music. It was certainly true of what I walked into, coming from that place where violence was born. But look, folks, people have to experience that, don't they? Because violence is a part of life here. So, I don't know, maybe that's, I just don't know. Maybe that's what people need to do. I can't judge it. To deal with this stuff, okay? If that's what one needs to do, I'm not going to be able to. I'll have to do it another way. And that's as far as it goes. I'm a little bemused by people who kind of find that pleasurable, but okay, they do. I don't see anything wrong with it. It has its place. We all need to deal with that thing called violence, don't we? Any questions or comments? I suspect. Yeah.
Well, I need to take care of the money and
Yeah.
maybe go to the ATM.
Okay. Any questions or comments? So that's why I always get cash here. I turn the checks into, what a lovely gift. Okay, I just want to leave you with one thought. That this exercise, like any other, is going to bring up all the reasons why it can't be done. And all of those things are merely obstructions to be understood, seen as illusions. So any aim that one takes on in the work will always take you back to the same old place again. I need to do a lot of observation and see illusions. And so they have great value, even if you cannot accomplish the thing. Just having it as an aim to do means you may one day accomplish it. It just depends on how many illusions you get to go through before you can see something good in all things. So no one expects that you'll be able to do it tomorrow, by tomorrow, okay? It is an aim, a direction to go in. I will say, though, that if you are discouraged by the fact that you can't do it by next Tuesday and give up, you deserve what you get. What if it takes you 3 years? What difference does that make? You don't have to have it now, do you? Instantaneously. What if it takes 3 years? Are you telling me that would not be a good use of 3 years? Don't let them make that suggestion. I can't do it. How the hell do you know? You only tried it for a few days and gave up. Can you imagine? I mean, this one started playing piano at age 6. Can you imagine if at age 7 I went to the piano teacher and said, I can't do it. I've been doing it for years. I just can't do it. Yes, because it takes 10 to 15. Now, fine, if you're doing something that takes a week and it takes you 3 months, give up. If you want to. But different things take different amounts of time, period. Unless you're a prodigy, isn't that right? Because that's kind of what a prodigy is. Somebody who sits down at a difficult task that takes most human beings 10 years to a lifetime and just does it instantaneously. And we have a word for that, don't we? And they ain't too common, are they? And I don't know about you, but I ain't one of them. That's fine. So this may be one of those projects that takes time. And then I love things like that, because they can talk you out of it. Because I actually have heard people do that. I've heard adults say, oh, I want to play the piano, and they go and start taking lessons. And then 6 months later, I usually encourage folks when they want to do things like that. Anything they want to do, I try to encourage them, whatever they want to do. I think that's neat, you know. So then 6 months later, I'm getting complaints. All I can do is play American Idol, I wanted to play. Like, well, you might keep going a little bit, and maybe you will, but after 6 months, I don't know exactly what you expect. Yeah, but I wanted to play. Okay, give up. I've seen a lot of people do that. I like that particular thing because that's just the way it is. Most musical instruments take years to kind of master. It's just the way it is. And then some people like this one put years into it and still don't master it. Boo-hoo. But at least I get to play, so I'm happy. You know, if I didn't master it, you understand? I still got something that I wanted, so even if you don't master it, you can at least maybe get it done and enjoy it, and so on. Just please don't let them do this. Part of the process is aiming to do it, and not being able to, and then seeing the illusion that prevented me this time. And that is doing it, actually. Just like practicing the piano is learning the instrument, isn't it? If you can tell me how to learn the piano without ever practicing, I'd love to hear it. And you do know what practicing is, don't you? It's called pretend like you can until you can. Isn't that right? Mm-hmm. When you sit down and practice, you pretend like you can do it because you can't. And then you keep pretending, and you keep pretending, and you pretend year after year after year, and maybe one day you'll sit down to do it, and you'll actually do it. But in the beginning, that's what practicing is, isn't it? Pretending. Fake it. Until it's real. That's why we all laugh at lawyers and doctors and professionals and accountants, right? Because they never apparently actually manage to do it. They have to practice all the time, so they're just faking it. But truthfully, that particular meaning of the word practice, that's what it means, doesn't it? It means you pretend until you can. And then, of course, it has another meaning. I know there's more than one meaning to the word. That's what it means, doesn't it? Pretend. Keep acting like you can. And then you keep running into all the ways that you can't, and you try and do something with them, right? And that's where the growth comes from in practice. Anything else? All right, let's hit it.
If anybody still wants to make a contribution, now would be the time to make it, please.